Thank you for tuning in to the Natty News Daily podcast. This episode is brought to you in part by our sponsor, Core Nutritionals. You can check out corenutritionals.com for all your supplement needs and use code Natty News Daily at checkout to save 20%. Enjoy the episode.
All right.
Alrighty, guys. Welcome back to the Natty News Daily podcast. We're here with Jeremiah Wright, Dr. Jeremiah Wright, multiple world champion, Mr. America Classic Physique. I probably missed some titles in there. There's probably plenty more. And I can say
resume
times like 8 because you've won those titles each at least 2 or 3 times. So how are you doing, man?
I am great, man. Feeling amazing.
Awesome. We're talking off air. We've got some cool topics to talk about, but why don't you give a brief introduction for those who might be unaware of you? They should be aware of you, but what's your background in just in general and then in bodybuilding?
All right. So, Dr. J, Dr. Jeremiah Wright, for those who don't know me, licensed chiropractor. We own a business here as a chiropractic office and personal training studios with nutrition. Got into bodybuilding in 2013 and been out of it ever since, but recently got back into it back in 2018 and has been competing ever since then. Since I started back up, I have gained some recognition, I should say. So I won the Miami Grand Prix twice. I am Mr. North America, which was out down in Tampa, 3-time Mr. America. I am Mr. Atlas. I won the Florida Pro numerous numbers of times, both classic and bodybuilding, 3 times in bodybuilding, 2 times in the classic. What else is there?
IPE.
IPE, that's right. IPE Worlds, 2-time IPE World Champions. And I think that about sums them up.
You have more titles than the 3 of us.
Well, not hard to say when I'm one of the 3, but you know.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh,
So,
man.
I was just gonna say, so where do we even begin with this? Because I feel like we could do like a 6-hour podcast with you. What drew you to Classic? I guess because you come back in 2018. That's what you said.
Absolutely.
So that's when Classic was just starting to get its feet under itself. Did you kind of just like, I'll give it a go, or were you recommended to it? Like, how did you kind of, because your resume in Classic Physique now is, obviously very impressive. So I want to know how that kind of went.
Well, you have the NPC to thank for that. Like I said, I started bodybuilding in 2013, 14, 15, and I was a bodybuilder. So started to compete. I did very well in those. And as you go in the NPC, you kind of you win some shows, and then you get invited to go to the national shows. And there was one show at TNEC. It's called Team U, and I was competing in that show and came in second place by 1 point to a natural person. And it kind of left a sour taste in my mouth, so I wasn't really happy with that. So after some time, I knew I didn't want to be a massive bodybuilder like you see a lot of those guys in that league. So took some time off, and as I was coaching and training people throughout those years, Classic Physique started to come around. I was like, okay, maybe let's give this a try. So when I dove back into bodybuilding, I was still doing the bodybuilding, but I also wanted to dive into the Classic Physique and see how I fared in that, and ended up doing really well in that. And I actually have the physique for a classic person, and the posing I had to learn, but that came along pretty good and fairly easy. And honestly, it just fits better for me. I don't have to be a massive human individual to compete in that league, So that's how I ended up with the Classic.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And even like just as a credit to your physique, and this is something I've talked about a couple different times, your conditioning is elite right? Like when you get lean, you can see every muscle. You see the VMO cross striated, the sartorius, like everything's peeled, but you still
Right.
stay full. Whether that's your peaking or your muscle bellies or what, you still have that like round look and that flow, and you don't get that withered, like kind of like grainy, shriveled look like
The
some
grainy.
natural bodybuilders do, right? So it's not like you're not conditioned, because you absolutely are, but your physique has that more classic line to it, that classic appeal and the flow to it for sure.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you
Um,
have any inclination to like do any bodybuilding anymore? Or are you going to strictly stay in classic?
Oh no, I will do bodybuilding in any show that will allow me to do a crossover.
Yeah, sweet.
So, yeah. So I don't shy away from competition. So if there's a bodybuilding and I'm able to do a crossover, then I would more than likely do both.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something too that we've talked about, where, a good bodybuilder or a good classic competitor can do bodybuilding, but a good bodybuilder can't necessarily do classic. And that's where,
Right.
we've seen you live at the Mr. America now 2 years in a row. And you throw bodybuilding trunks on you, like you're still going to be able to go head to head with a lot of those top level guys too, right? But on the flip side,
Mhm.
they throw the classic trunks on, you're like, meh, I don't know if you quite fit, right? So that speaks to obviously the quality of your physique, but you got a luck of the draw with, like James said, muscle bellies, bone structure, and that kind of stuff, where you can kind of play the field with that.
The little morph. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
Yep.
Nice. I love it. So with the number of different federations that you've competed in, I always like to see the athletes. Like, what's been your experience? Where do you kind of lean towards? I know you said you've won like the Florida State Pro multiple different times. Like, is it
Right.
more for you the show and the experience rather than the federation? Or kind of like what draws your eye and where do you compete and why, I guess?
So that's a good question. And there's a number of different reasons why I do certain shows. One is the show and the experience that I have at the show. How well the athletes are treated, how the show is ran, and just the overall appearance of the show. I've done the
Professionalism,
Florida Pro.
sort of like the professionalism. Is that
Yes, absolutely, yeah. And I've done the Florida Pro, and like you guys know, Daryl. Daryl's top notch, and how he runs his show, and it's just fun. You compete, you have interviews, and you have parties afterwards, an after party. So that's a great show to compete in. And then the IPE, I mean, they do some of the same things. So, and first it's the caliber of show, it's the professionalism, and then it's who's going to be at the show. Um,
Mhm.
you know, I love the saying "iron sharpens iron," and I love to compete, and I love to compete against the best. So if I know there's going to be athletes that I want to compete against, then I'm going to register for those shows. And shout out to my man Mishak. I 2 years ago, I think, or last year, I was doing the Show Me State Classic, and he was one competitor that I wanted to compete against so bad in bodybuilding because he's just big and massive. And
Mhm.
I actually got that chance, and Mishak was like, this is why I'm the best. So exposing his muscle bellies. I mean, he's just he's a phenomenal athlete, and
yeah.
and that's why I try to do so many shows because I want to compete against those caliber people, those caliber athletes.
Is there anything you haven't checked off, like your show bucket list, for example? So like obviously, you've done Mr. America multiple times, IP, Florida State. Like, is there any shows that you've yet to be like, I'm gonna jump in and mix it up?
There is a show that I want to do. I mean, everyone says it's supposed. There's a couple of them actually. Everyone says they're like the best of the best, and that's where they go. One is the Natural Olympia because I would love to compete in that show, and the other
Mhm.
being in Yorton. I haven't tried my hands in that realm of athletes. So
Mhm.
those would be
Okay.
a couple of shows that I would look to get into in the near future.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where, the segregation in natural bodybuilding, like, there's athletes from every organization, every division that you're going to be like, man, I'd love to share the stage with them, or I'd love to hit that stage. And that's where, you have to kind of bounce around a little bit, right? To find
Absolutely.
those platforms to do it. And, that's you can look at it like pros and cons, right? Like we're so dispersed out, but it's also more opportunities to jump into these different shows and different places like Mr. America and IPE Worlds, like totally different playing fields, but gives you those opportunities, right?
And they both bring insane amounts of talent,
Yeah.
you know, and I absolutely love the fact that there's organizations that accept other pro cards, like other pros to compete in their organization. That's one of the, I don't know, amazing things about the Natty world, that you can interchange through organizations. And for that to be something that we're able to do, that's awesome.
With
Yeah.
James, you got one?
Nope. Go for it. I'll keep quiet.
I just have so many questions. I'm a
Go for it.
fan, so I just want to grill them.
Awesome.
With so many natural athletes seeking IFBB pro cards, has that ever crossed your mind? No? Not even to just
No.
check it off the bucket list, just to say you could do it?
He's thinking about it.
No, not really.
Because let's be honest.
It's-
Let's be honest. You could, right? Like, you know, you
Mhm.
get the right show, the right lineup. Obviously, not to discredit you, but like you're
Right.
at that level where you could duke it out. I mean, we've seen guys do it, and there's people that in a couple weeks at the Ben Wieters, Jacob O'Neill is jumping into that show as a natural athlete. You know, WNBF pro, that it's an opportunity to do it, and whether you take it anywhere or not, you know, doesn't
You can say
really
you've done
matter.
it.
You could say you did it, and that's kind of like my mindset towards it too, because I'm kind of weighing out options for my next season, and there's a few things that are on my mind, and one of those is to be like, I'm gonna make a run at it and maybe see what happens, right? Like that's all that's on the side of opportunity. So for someone like yourself that clearly has the resume to back it up, that people would be like no one's gonna look at you and be like, dude, are you serious? Most people are gonna be like, I could see it.
Mhm.
I think the first time I saw you in 2021, I think I might have messaged you guys, you two. I said this guy could win an IFBB pro card. I think I remember saying that. I think it said it to you guys, but I said it to someone. But I was like, this guy could- yeah.
Especially with, let's use Terrence Ruffin as an example, because he's not the biggest athlete. I think at the Olympia this year he was 178. Not big. He's like 5'5", maybe 5'6". Beautiful poser like yourself, great flow like yourself, and he's at the top of the game. So
Mhm.
I'm just saying, I'd love to see it.
So let's not count it out then, because I mean,
Hey, peer
like I said,
pressure
I
at its
love
finest.
competition. Exactly. I
That's
love
awesome.
competition. I mean, if the situation or the opportunity presents itself, then I won't shy away from it. But am I looking to go and find a
Yep.
show and say, yeah, I'm going to do that show? Yeah.
Okay. So you're saying there's a chance.
There's a chance.
There's always a chance.
There is a chance. Always a chance. Yes.
So before we get too far into it, I don't want to get too sidetracked, because we were talking about a version of the IFBB earlier before we started recording, and I think that's interesting because you have actually, both you and Leroy have some experience with this specific subdivision, federation, branch, whatever you want to call it, where other people probably aren't, myself included. Like I said, I was trying to
Mhm.
research it and figure out what's going on there, and I couldn't. So I think for educational purposes, this would be a great discussion for people to understand that there is more than one IFBB, and to kind of like break apart what that actually is.
Absolutely. I'm going to do it to the best of my knowledge. So the IFBB, the one that I am a part of, is called the IFBB Physique America. So it's the American affiliation of the international or global IFBB. So the IFBB, as it stands, where I was just in Spain, it is known as, they have the Elite Pro, and they also have the IFBB Amateur League. So, but when you get here in the United States, you have the NPC, but then their pro league is called the IFBB, which is just the letters IFBB, NPC Pro League. And one of the things that is different that I know of from personal experience is to compete in the at the level that I was just in, so at Santa Susana for the Worlds or any world championship that's in other countries within this league, you have to first qualify and you have to be selected to compete in that
Yep.
organization. So for for me, I was a representation for Team USA, and I've been fortunate enough to do that three different times. So if anyone wanted to ever to compete in that league, there's a number of shows that are here in the States and Canada, you can compete
Yep.
in, and then they will select you based out of a group of athletes, and then you guys will represent your said country, whichever country that may be from.
Yep. Yeah, ours was the same way. So we've had obviously a lot of shifts up here within like the IFBB, and now like our main organization in Canada is the CPA, which is the equivalent to the NPC. But when I first started, we had the CBBF, which was the Canadian Bodybuilding Federation, which was under the IFBB Elite, like it was the Canadian affiliate, like you said. So we had like a provincials, then a nationals, and when I did it in 2017. Quentin Araya, which a lot of listeners might know, Quint Beastwood, IFBB Pro. He was in that show as well, and we were natural. And there was 4 of us that, like you said, got the invite to go, and I went to Spain in 2017. And we were talking off air about the drug testing or lack thereof or whatever that may be involved there, which was kind of disheartening at the time because I was like 21 and we were all natural, and I was like, wow, we're going to like a natural world championships. This is amazing. And then I got there and like, I don't know, but I looked around and I'm pretty sure I was the only natural dude in the building. But with that being said, to be invited to compete in Spain, like for anybody listening to go and compete internationally, like on an invite is kind of cool. And like I don't know about you, but like they covered a little bit of expenses for us, which was nice. So it's an opportunity, and as someone who was just likes to compete, like you said, right? You want to go compete, regardless of who it's against, where it is. Like if it's an opportunity, jump on it, right?
Yeah, yeah. To your point, like once you get sponsored, like it's a full sponsor. So each time I've gone, it's been a full sponsorship. So everything was taken care of it for me, the trip, the hotel, the food, everything. So it is an amazing opportunity, and it is an experience to have, especially if you want to see what other athletes are like from other countries, and to just test your wits against other athletes from other countries, because they may have something you don't have, you may have something they don't have, you may can learn something.
Yep.
It is definitely an experience to be had if you ever get the opportunity. And I would encourage anyone who's ever interested in wanting to test their might against the world to come into the IFBB. For the US, it's the IFBBPA. Come into that organization and literally go against those guys. Like down here, I absolutely love the Miami Grand Prix. It is a show put on by Carlos Cortez, and it's down in Miami, and he brings in different countries, and you compete. And if you win, you either go to Mexico or you go to Spain or wherever the other world championship is. And it's pretty much, if it's a full sponsorship, you get it paid for completely.
Which is obviously, I won't even call it a rarity. It just doesn't happen in the main natural federations.
That's a
at least yet.
unicorn.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is a
And
unicorn.
just so people aren't thinking that this is some like rinky dink, right? How many athletes did you say was there at the Worlds? You mentioned a number off
Oh,
air.
over 1,500 athletes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
In
a big
my
deal.
class alone, just in my height class alone, there were 20 athletes. And you have to go through an elimination round, and then you go through your comparisons.
That's
It's
awesome.
it's a big deal.
What's the elimination round? What does that consist of?
So if there's more than 17 athletes, they bring everyone out. They
They just point.
put you, yeah. So they bring you out, then they section you off. Like what they did this year was it was 666 or 667, whatever their breakdown was. He did 3/4 turns and a pose, and then they brought the next group 3/4 turns and a pose, next group, and then from that they picked the top 6. and then you do your comparisons.
And you were, remind me of your placing. You were 6th out of 20.
Sixth, yeah, yeah. hmm
And again, like
Which we will improve on.
for sure, for sure. And again, like obviously we can't prove anything, but going off my experiences, you know, if you were 6 out of 20, the likelihood that you were potentially one of, if not the only natural athlete in the lineup, again, just from what I saw when I went, like that's no joke, right? And that's why you obviously have the resume you have, is because you're potentially squaring up with guys that are enhanced and beating them.
Yeah, pretty much.
What is
Exactly.
what is the posing like over there? Like, do they have you do any, like, is there anything different over there than what you're doing here? Do they have like classic poses they call, or is there any differences?
Yeah, they definitely call all classic poses. There are some poses that are just not classic that they don't even call that we do here. Like the lat spread, the front and back lat spread. They don't do that in any international competition. It is just a side chest. A couple classic poses of your choice. You got to do a rear double bi and vacuum. Vacuum is a must. So if you want to do classic and you want to compete internationally, if you don't know how to do a vacuum, I suggest you work on that because you are graded pretty good on that.
I feel like that should be a must, to be honest. I think that's brilliant.
I think so too. I think in anybody who wants to compete in classic, you have to be able to vacuum.
It's interesting too, because that's a pose where if you have a shitty rib cage, you're screwed. Even if you can pull a good vacuum, if you've got like a shallow rib cage or like a narrow rib cage, it just doesn't look right. Like you need that,
No.
you know, like you think of Arnold, right? He had this like just this mountain of a rib cage that when he hit those vacuum shots looked so good.
Yeah. His waist just disappeared.
Yeah.
Yep.
James, it's your turn. I asked. You're next.
Yeah, no.
I could just keep going. So
I know. I'm glad to get that breakdown because I think that gives hopefully some athletes an idea of what they could do. And this is, you know, there's a big asterisk on the drug testing or whatever. But like you said, if we're doing it for the experience, which most athletes are, because most athletes don't have your resume, they aren't world class and they're not gunning for titles. They just want to compete, see where they stack up, challenge themselves, and have, you know, an adventure within natural bodybuilding. If you can get an invite to get paid to go do the thing that you love to do, like, isn't that our big dream? Isn't that what we all want to do? Right. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
I like it. And maybe some of these other federations on a smaller scale can like learn from that, right? That's the whole thing too, is, you know, pick, you know, this show does this very well. This federation does this very well. Like, where can we improve on? Instead of seeing it as competition, see it as like, okay, this is athletes like this. Athletes are going to these shows for this reason. Like you said, you pick shows, you pick experiences. I think if more federations and more promoters in general looked at that and saw where the big athletes were going when they are crossing federations, the whole sport would be improved just as that.
100%. I agree with that. One of the main things is too, and you hear this a lot from other athletes, top athletes, is there's always have to be something like the competition is going to go to where there's a guarantee. Um, I haven't picked a show that has a sliding scale payout. This always has to be some form of a guaranteed payout. And if promoters know that to just guarantee payouts, they will probably see an increase in athletes that are coming to their shows, pro athletes coming to their shows, because it is attractive to us, you know?
Yeah. Some transparency, right? You don't want to show up and there be two pros and you get no income, no money. Like, you know, I know the money's not much, but it still is something. It's some incentive. And there are federations. I'm thinking like USBF, their championships, they have some relatively big payouts. Yorton Cup is one where they've increased their payouts in the last couple of years. So, and they're very clear and obvious about if you win, you get this much. Men and female, you know, men and women get the exact same across the board. So there's definitely some positives there, and I agree with that.
Absolutely. The IPE, I love their show. One's the way it's ran, two, the experience you get, and three, they have not changed their payout. it has been consistently a huge payout for me. I think it's huge. It's a $5,000 first place payout for a Classic Physique winner. So I I will always pick that show if it's up to me. I will always pick that show because you have high caliber athletes going to that show because they're going to want to go to compete to where the best are going to compete. And in the past few years, I've done that show. That's where it's been. Again, Mr. America's another one, and the Florida Pro, that's another one as well.
Hmm.
You want to
Yeah.
bring talent to where talent's going to be.
Yeah.
That's actually good.
I was just gonna say those promoters, those shows are just showing you respect as a professional athlete, right? They're respecting you as
Absolutely.
the athlete, and athletes are gonna respect that. And it's just this reciprocal, or mutual respect of each other, this mutual relationship.
Right. I agree.
You're approaching it like a professional athlete would. You know what I mean? Like I think in natural bodybuilding, a lot of people just kind of, because there's not a lot of money in it for most competitors, no money in it for most competitors. It's just like, I'm just gonna do this for fun, for experience, compete, this and that. You're at that level where you're like, I'm gonna go get some money, right? I'm gonna do these shows.
Hmm.
If I win these shows, like 10, 15, 20 grand in my pocket for the year as a competitive natural bodybuilder, like that's no joke. And
No.
opportunities where expenses are paid to go to Spain and stuff like that. Like you are probably, from people we've talked to, the closest example is of a professional bodybuilder that's getting paid and getting some significant portion of income from the sport, which kudos to you, because I don't know, because you're almost
Thank you.
thinking of it as a business, right? Your physique, your bodybuilding, you are a business.
Hmm.
And every professional athlete across every genre is a business to some extent, right?
Absolutely.
So that's impressive. I think for those listening, to use you as an example of what is possible and picking shows that provide you that financial incentive. And like you said, it's only going to draw higher caliber athletes, which then ticks the box of, I want to compete with good quality athletes. The shows
Yep.
are going to draw the quality, which is going to put money in the show. Then the production is better. More people are going to watch, more eyes on those shows. And that's when you're going to see like the Mr. America, the IPE Worlds, the Florida State, like these shows start to creep up in the industry, and other shows start to fall to the wayside because they're not following suit, they're not paying, they're not getting that quality of athlete because people are seeing, well, frig, Jeremiah is going to compete for 5K at IPE Worlds. Like, I want in on that. Maybe they don't
Right.
win, but now you're drawing these people at Dozy there, right? He was in there with the mix with you, and like, there's no way he's
Absolutely.
not looking at it and being like, man, if I step my game up over the next year or two, like maybe I could, walk away with a couple grand, right? Like that's what the
Yeah.
sport, it needs more of that. So hopefully
And and
we can
and
push
I
for.
think they're starting to do that. I think they're starting to do that. Like I think a lot of athletes are seeing like where the big names are going and they're wanting to compete against where the big names are going. And I think it's drawing more attention to the sport itself and to just like what it can bring to you as an athlete. I always say like you are I joke with a lot of my patients that I'm a walking billboard. I am my profession, I am my business, I am what I
Yep.
do. So if I'm going to compete in these federations and these competitions, I at least want to look the part on and off the stage. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So you have that mindset and keep that mindset.
Yeah. Spoken like a true pro.
I think it's a great way to cap things off here.
Yeah, man. We appreciate you coming on, dude. I'm glad we could set this up. This has been a long time coming.
Absolutely. I'm so happy you guys actually allowed me to come on. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Always
You,
welcome
you,
back.
you weren't at the top of the list, but no, just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'd vote for you any day.
It is all good.
If people want to follow along, man, they want to stay in touch with you and your journey, where do they find you?
My Instagram is ChiroFit. That is ChiroPhit. And on Facebook it's Fit Squad, PhitSquad.
Cool. All right, people. Well, give the man a follow, show him some support, watch him go win more titles, and just crush the natural scene while he's doing it. We appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one.